Hello doll friends, this is Michael Canadas with the Carmel Doll Shop and the Grovian Doll Museum. In this session, we are going to share with you one of our treasures. You are the first people to see this in our collection. We've had this for many, many years. We acquired this years ago from a museum known as Angel's Attic Museum in Santa Monica. And when they closed their doors, we were lucky enough to acquire some very nice pieces, and many of those we've shared with you in the past. This was a piece that I just instantly fell in love with, and it's something very, very different. And what I love about it is miniature, and it is also something that gives us a glimpse of a world that no longer exists, this is a trading post, a Native American, or as they would have said in the time of this, an Indian trading post. David and I did some sleuthing because there's a couple of things as far as dating it that I believe that everything in it is absolutely original. I will also say it wasn't one of the favorite pieces in the Angel Attic collection. So what we have determined is that it is probably circa 1905 to about 1910. And how we're getting that is these architectural details here, which are really of the 1905, 1910 architectural features. Interesting enough, it's the same era as the Grovian Doll Museum building, so we have some of the similar architectural details. Then this mural, which is basically of the area that this trading post existed, those are very of the era and of the time. You see a lot of these types of murals in, say, the famous Maxfield Parish bar in New York City. It's a kind of a dream world. And of course, Arizona can be, which this is where this is from, can have that very ethereal look. So we've got the Greasewood Trading Post, and you can see here on this sign that it is on a reservation and it is a trading post. Now, I'm not so sure that this was for tourists or if this was an actual trading post for the native people on the reservation. So what's so fantastic about it is it shows us the type of inventory that they were selling. So you have back in this corner, you can see we've got two rifles, which would have been necessary to have at that time of for protection for your livestock and whatnot. Then we have all of our various fabrics, which we would need for bedding, quilts, clothing, etc. And then I'm not sure what these boxes are up in here, what they're for, but I would imagine that these are probably for notions, buttons, threads, that kind of thing. And these could, also be like a hat box. And then I think we've got our very special fabrics that are behind glass. And then we go directly to groceries, where we have all of our canned goods. And then here below we have our, they look like rolls and vegetables and that kind of thing. Before we go to the other side of the building, as today, if you go to a trading post in Arizona, which would almost a trading post now is basically a gas station with a convenience store. And in that part of the world, there's still not a huge population in a lot of the areas. So you have your post office. And if, Eric, if you can come around to the back, And I will go to the front. I think it's fascinating that whoever made this created the post office is completely stocked with all kinds of parcels and letters. So they're all stacked up in this area here. So from this side, you can see it through the chicken wire. Then you have your normal thing that you would expect to see, baskets, and I think that these, it's safe to say that those are original because they are actually woven, probably out of pine needles, and they have been nailed to the walls. So I think we can safely assume that they've always been there. Now, we did have a little accident. We are about 2 blocks from the ocean, so there's quite a bit of moisture here. And the figures are actually just plaster figures. So there's, I know this now because of this experience, there's a metal inside of their bodies, and then there's plaster molded around. So we did have a male salesman here who, he was missing his face. And because of the moisture in the air, and because his face was missing, the moisture got into his whole body, and I went to pick him up and he just crumbled. So that is a good lesson that if you have, say, Georgian woodens and you've got some plaster showing, also known as gesso, make sure that you stop the air and moisture from getting in, because it literally just fell completely apart. But we did right here used to have a salesman, but we are very lucky to have 2 customers still. Then I want to show you something that I thought was very interesting that helped us kind of with the concept of how old this piece was. So all of these blankets, most of them, when I brought it out, were behind the counter. So they've been there for a very long time. But if you notice that this rug, or blanket, I'm sure that's what it really is, has this symbol that would not have been acceptable if it were, say, from the 40s or the 50s or the 30s. But before the Nazis took over this symbol, this was a Native American and actually in many, many cultures, a sign of good luck. So I don't think that this would have been made any later than probably 1915. It could even be into the 20s, but we're going to stick with our earlier attribution for age. And I think it's a very rare thing that this didn't just get burnt because of the connection with the swastika. And I think that the heating system, you think of the desert, you think of it as always hot, Arizona. I think of it as hot, but you know what? It also gets really, really cold in the winter, and it also is cold in the mornings. So this, commercial heating stove was a nice piece to have. And then we have all trading places have to have a scale. So we have a very nice scale, and of course more blankets, which are beautifully done. And then a nice big counter and more baskets. And then we have, of course, flour, which would have been very important for making tortillas and other delights. And then a whole bunch of preserved foods. Now, we can't make out what any of them are. So it's still fairly early for that kind of foods. And then we have our coffee. I would imagine these are coffees, but they could also be pickles, anything that went into that kind of container. And then this I thought was very interesting. We know that Native Americans are very good at leather work. So this is actually a roll of real leather So that would be for someone who's crafting belts and things for horses and whatnot. And then here we really get, you know, all of the incredible colored prints of the fabrics. And here's some more leathers. And these, I think, are to represent boxes. So those are just various boxes. It's too bad that they didn't put labels on them, but I think the shopkeeper knows what everything is. And then below this, we have more canned goods. And these, I think, are interesting as well. I feel, and if anyone has a different idea, I think that these are cheese wheels. You know, the big old-fashioned way that cheese used to be sold. It wasn't sold, you know, as we get it today in the market with little tiny pieces. This would have been a big wheel for a family, or they would have cut off a certain amount and then sold it. And then we have all kinds of little bric-a-brac, which I think is fascinating, and I think we could add to it if we liked. But I think these parcels, I'm going to pull one out so that you can see how well done that is. Very well done. And I think that's fascinating. So this lady is obviously either receiving or sending a couple of parcels. And then I should point out the nice little dog. When I first started getting this prepared for you, he was over here, but I think he wasn't connecting with people. We all know how dogs are. I think some of you might be shocked to know that I am a collector. And I noticed this little piece of pottery, which is not of the period. I wasn't even going to talk about it, but then I thought, you know what, I am going to talk about it, because I will replace this. It'll stay here now as a reminder. But this trading company gives me the opportunity as a collector to collect up miniature pieces of Native American pottery and little miniature Native American baskets. And I can go to town with this. And when you're a collector, you always need things to look for. And I think this will be a fun thing for us to add to it. This video will represent what it looked like before I added to it, but I do plan on adding some more wonderful things to it, because you cannot sell from an empty cart. This was part of the very glamorous Angel's Attic Museum collection. And in the 1980s, they actually loaned their collection to a Japanese department store. So this actual piece was shipped all the way to Japan, and it still has its packing label. And I know that for the ladies that were the founders and directors of that museum, that Japanese experience was very, very positive for them. And I think that this piece going to somewhere like Japan would have been a revelation to them, because most Japanese people would never get an opportunity to go to the great state of Arizona and ever see a real Native American trading post, but they got it in miniature. And that's the beauty of our hobby and miniatures. Now, I will tell you that we did quite a bit of sleuthing on Greasewood, and I think it's very easy to remember that name. But then we were we got a little bit of had an issue with this name, because this is also a town. So we're not sure if Greasewood in this town, did they change names? But on this particular piece, there's 3 references in, there's a right up here on the wall here, and there's another one on the other wall that reference Greasewood. So I feel that this is from, or meant to represent, an Indian trading post in a place called Greasewood, Arizona. So I hope you enjoyed this really a wonderful American treasure, and we're happy to add more American items to our collection, and I look forward to sharing more of these treasures with all of you. Bye-bye.
Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.